Please welcome Scottsdale Chamber President and CEO, Mr. Mark Stanton.
Good morning and welcome to Scottsdale Forward. We're very excited to welcome you virtually to the Scottsdale Center for the Arts, and on behalf of the Board of Directors and membership of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us today. Scottsdale Forward, as many of you may know, is our signature economic development event that's undertaken by the Scottsdale Chamber to focus on the initiatives of the City of Scottsdale, the challenges that may be coming before us, and looking forward to the future. Well, it's no surprise that this past year has been quite the challenge. We've had, of course, the pandemic, civil unrest, an election, and now we turn our eyes to the future, focusing on Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. So we'll try to leave that off the agenda for today, but we have a wonderful, wonderful program for you today, focusing on the important future of Scottsdale, the recovery from the pandemic, and what we can look for economic outlook moving forward. As we begin today, I'd like to thank Dr. Gerd Wuestemann from the Scottsdale Center for the Arts, who's hosting us today at the Scottsdale Center for the Arts, and is anxious to welcome all of their visitors and their guests to performances coming forward. But you'll hear from Dr. Wuestemann in just a few minutes. But to lead off, I'd like to recognize our dignitaries that are joining us today. First of all, Mayor Ortega, thank you very much for being here. He'll be saying a few words to greet us all, as well as welcome our City Council members, Tammy Caputi, Tom Durham, Kathy Littlefield, Linda Milhaven, and Solange Whitehead. Thank you all for your leadership, and we're excited to see all the important work that you're going to be bringing in the new term. The event would not be possible if we didn't have so many wonderful sponsors and important stakeholders that are helping us today. We have several corporate sponsors that I'd like to recognize this morning. APS, Arizona State University, ASU, DC Ranch, Honor Health, and SRP. Also, our supporting sponsors today, First Bank, Sachs Tierney, and Western State Bank. And of course, our in-kind sponsors that have done so much to help pull the event together, and so grateful for their participation. Matt Young Photography, Pro One Media Productions, Scottsdale Arts, Scottsdale Video Network, Channel 11, and the City of Scottsdale. Thank you all for your continued support of the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to introduce our new mayor, Mayor David Ortega. Not new to Scottsdale, a very accomplished architect and civic leader. He took office in January to lead Scottsdale as we come through the pandemic. He is building a platform of leadership based on equal rights for all, responsive city government, and the adoption of citizen-driven general plan, and of course, supporting economic vitality. It's my true pleasure to introduce Mayor David Ortega.
Well, thank you, Mark, and welcome to Scottsdale. I get to say that to new visitors and every person with a smile. Well, 2020 was a stress test in our home, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our hospitals, in our church congregations. And COVID-19 tested Scottsdale government in every way. And I can tell you, we are standing tall today. The worldwide pandemic accelerated many trends such as remote learning, remote business, remote medicine, telemedicine, and of course, real estate transactions, and a great curiosity about Scottsdale. These major trends are significant and will be and continue to be part of the business models in the future. The COVID era turned the world away from high density, tall buildings, 8 passenger elevators, and cramped transit. Those who can seek low density, low profile, open spaces, friendly neighborhoods, parks, and desert beauty. They seek a place called Scottsdale, where work from home is a higher quality of life. Scottsdale is 70 years young, and we have firm footing because we are at the crossroads of talent and investment. 1 year into the pandemic, and Scottsdale is not at a turning point, but we are at an entry point to Scottsdale. Scottsdale is in demand because we are the one and only Scottsdale. Scottsdale is the premier destination for talent and investment nationally and internationally. While California and Texas have had drastic failures in power and water infrastructure before and during the pandemic, Scottsdale is working diligently to provide reliability and manage scarce resources. To stay successful, every major corporation has a sustainability strategy. Our City Council is committed to sustainability both near term and over the horizon. 2021 is the year of recovery and opportunity as long as we hold true to our values, which got us here and will carry us into the future. Just as the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce is the entry point for success, our city has an action plan to ensure that we attract and retain new businesses, and we are always hospitable and welcoming to all. I'm looking forward to listening to our conversation so we can all move together because we are Scottsdale. I'm looking forward to the speakers and the viewpoints that we'll be expressing today because I would summarize this coming year and the term of my colleagues together on City Council as a return to quality. Scottsdale is quality, and that's where we will be a year from now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega. Very appreciative of your time today, your leadership, along with you and your council, for a great term ahead. Thank you very much for being here today. Next, it's my honor to introduce President Martin Harvier. President Harvier is president of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, and he was elected in 2018. Prior to that, he had been serving as vice president of the community. As you know, the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce represents a wide geographic area, and we're very proud and grateful for our partnership with President Harvier and the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community in all that they do to help build up the region and the economic driver that they have become. And I will say that President Harvier welcomes his 10th grandchild today. So it's my honor and pleasure to introduce President Martin Harvier.
Good morning, and thank you, President Stanton, for the congratulations. You know, I was wondering what picture they would show of me this morning. I'm going to blame this on the virus also. But I just want to say good morning. I've been the president of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community going on 2 years of a 4-year term. So I was speaking with President Stanton this morning. I said, you know, usually we would be at Scottsdale Community College hosting this event, and I would be able to welcome you to the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community. Well, we're kind of in Old Town Scottsdale, but I will share with you, and I think I've shared with it at other events, you know, our community was established in 1879 by then President Rutherford B. Hayes. And in January of 1879, the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community consisted over 600,000 acres of land, which encompassed the whole city of Scottsdale, Phoenix, up into Glendale, all of Tempe, and followed the Salt River all the way up into the Salt River. So I kind of am welcoming you to the community, part of the old community, our ancestral lands here in Scottsdale. But just wanted to welcome you and, just think about what we're going through, what we've been through, where we're going. I'll tell you, even in our government operations, those are still good questions that we're asking when our employees start coming back into the workforce. What's that going to look like? And how are we going to deal with issues of making sure people are being safe and protecting yourself and others? So I think there's still some challenges that are down the road, but I think if we all work on this together, we're going to get through this. I'll tell you, as a Native American, what we're going through here, I'm hoping I, just like everyone else, have learned, what's important in life. You ask some of the elders of our community that were alive in the 30s when the Depression happened, what was it like living through the Depression? And a lot of our members didn't realize we're in a depression because they didn't have much. But things have changed. And in our community, I think we were like a lot of others that lived throughout the country. Those essential needs that we needed when we tried to go to the grocery stores to find them, they weren't there. So what have we learned in that area? I think we just need to be prepared as a family to take care of our families. And I believe through development for our community is so important, the economic development within our community, to have those income that's generated from those developments come back into the community to operate those services for our community. So I've really enjoyed the leadership of Scottsdale in the past mayor, Mayor Lane, and I really look forward to working with Mayor Ortega. I really appreciate his friendship that he's shown over the years prior to even being the mayor. But I just wanted to wish everybody well. And I always say, one of our displays in our one of our buildings is a shield, and on that shield there's a design. And a shield is always put up to block things coming at you when you're in battle. And I refer to this as the shield. So all of you that are watching, let's do our part, shield up. God bless.
Thank you, President Harvier. Greatly appreciative of your leadership and your partnership with Scottsdale and the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce. They say that a mark of a community, a strong community, is how they manage culture, their cultural heritage, and how they manage culture in general. And I have to say that Scottsdale Arts is a perfect example of leadership, innovation, and partnership. And we're very grateful for Scottsdale Arts and their board and their members and supporters. As a matter of fact, today we are at the Scottsdale Center for the Arts, and leading that effort is Dr. Gerd Wuestemann. Dr. Wuestemann is a longtime champion and a performance artist himself of the arts, and also, in addition to serving as the president and the CEO of Scottsdale Arts, he serves on the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And very grateful for his partnership, his community stewardship, and his friendship. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Gerd Wuestemann from Scottsdale Arts.
Good morning, welcome, and thank you, Mark, for the kind words. We are so thrilled to have you watching this morning, and boy, I can't tell you how good it feels to be back on this stage again, even as I'm speaking to an empty hall this morning. However, getting up to get ready for a 7 a.m. in-person event here after this year was a bit of a challenge. We're thrilled to be here. We're thrilled and want to thank our partners at the Chamber of Commerce, Mark and Cherie, for the amazing work they've done to put this together. Want to thank Mayor Ortega and all of our business leadership to be here today. It's really wonderful to have them speak to the community through this forum. But I also want to give a really big shout out to the men and women behind our stage here that in the best of times make production work seamless, And these are very challenging times to produce, so I want to recognize the staff, board, and volunteers here at Scottsdale Arts for the amazing work they've done throughout this year and really any year. Come Monday, I'll celebrate 3 anniversaries here in Scottsdale. It's the 3rd anniversary of me being in this job and having moved across the country to take this position. It is the 1-year anniversary of us shutting down our campus when we declared a pandemic. And it's also the 1-year anniversary of my family and I purchasing a home here in Scottsdale and fully settling into this community. And if you've never closed on a home the day a pandemic was declared, you really haven't fully lived. So it was an interesting experience. And what a year it has been for us in this business, because we're in the people-to-people business, we're in the personal experience business, and it was very, very difficult to carry that torch throughout this last year. But we pivoted, we changed, we evolved, we invested, we created some ingenious ways to continue to serve our community throughout this. And it's been thrilling to see how much of a difference art and culture make, especially in challenging times, to this world. And I believe that all of us, looking back on this year, will remember those rare and special moments that were really brought upon us through the arts. An inauguration poem bringing us back together. A song that moved our heart, a photograph that touched our soul. I think looking back, those will be the special moments we'll remember forever throughout this. Those who inspired us, who brought us through this crisis, who helped us cope. But a crisis is also a great and unique moment to take inventory and to prepare, because there will be a day when the crisis ends, and those of us who've prepared well will be shining in that moment. So at Scottsdale Arts, we took inventory and prepared ourselves really well throughout this and worked tirelessly. And I'm here to share 3 really great and unique pieces of information with you. 1, Scottsdale Arts weathered this crisis among the 1% of arts organizations in the country. We are financially sound, with some good, solid financial structure in place and some financial backbone and savings. We have not laid off a single staff member throughout this crisis. We have worked very hard to protect this organization, keep all the amazing staffers here employed and very, very busy throughout this. I'm very proud of that. Number 2, we used this year wisely by planning and preparing for the future. We invested in equipment. You see updates throughout our venues. So if ever a pandemic shall strike us again, we'll be better prepared to still operate and function and keep everybody safe. We invested in safety features. We invested in streaming equipment, some of which you get to enjoy here this morning in this event. But we also planned for a very bright future to reemerge. We invested in bookings for the next season, which leads us to point number 3. I'm incredibly excited and full of unbridled optimism about a fantastic future for this organization, for culture in our city, and for this community at large. In just a couple of months, we'll kick off a massive construction project that will transform this already beautiful civic center into a new heartbeat of our community. And coming out of the pandemic, I couldn't think of a better project that really speaks to the resilience and strength of Scottsdale as a community and of the arts at its core. And I promise you, we have worked tirelessly to book and produce the finest, most star-studded, and most extensive season we have ever presented here at Scottsdale Arts. So while we're fully open today and have a long spring season all the way into June, come back and join us in September and you will not be disappointed. We're looking forward to seeing you here again. And again, thank you for watching. Thanks to all of our community friends and leaders for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Wuestemann, for all that you do, and we are very excited about the upcoming season at Scottsdale Arts and all of the exciting programs and exhibits that your team, your staff, will be bringing forward. And I will tell you that in this beautiful auditorium, which is virtually empty today, as I speak to everybody at home, enjoying your mini wheats and a cup of coffee, I can tell you that Scottsdale Arts will welcome you back, and it'll be great to see you in person. Although I do look a little taller on Zoom, it'll be great to have you here in person. Next, I have to tell you that Scottsdale Chamber is a great greatly appreciative and a great partner with the City of Scottsdale on many different levels and through many different organizations. But one of the most important is the Office of Economic Development. And it's my pleasure to introduce Rob Millar, the Director of the Office of Economic Development. Rob's office and his team, Josh and Crystal and the group, all work very hard to build up the economic vitality of the community, business attraction, business retention, working with helping build up the quality of life which we all enjoy. And I will say that never has that been more important as we've gone through the pandemic. And I'm very grateful to Rob and his team at the city for working closely with the Chamber to help businesses navigate these challenging times, help reach out to give them opportunities, give them insight, and give them some direction to help them maintain their business and build their business. It has been an honor to continue to work with Rob Millar and his team, and I welcome now Rob Millar.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I was driving in this morning, as I do every day, and I was excited because I was picturing all of you here, and you're not, and I wish you were, and I look forward to seeing you, but Van Halen's Jump came on, and it actually made me think that, we have a lot to jump about right now. So if you were all here, I'd probably ask you to get up and jump with me for a few minutes. We played over loudspeakers, so I'll send you all a text later with the link to the song. But again, good to be here this morning. I do look forward to this event every year. Admittedly, I'm biased. Economic development is my favorite subject and the most important subject. But again, as an economic developer, I really am excited for all of us to come together and talk about what is happening in Scottsdale. We have a lot to talk about. First, I want to thank the Chamber for putting on this annual event. It really is critical. And the Chamber is part and parcel to what we do almost on a daily basis. And we couldn't do what we do without the Chamber. I want to thank them. I'd also like to recognize Mayor Ortega and the City Council and the City Manager for all they do in providing leadership on not just economic development, but leadership on a daily basis, as well as our key partners throughout the region and the state, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council, the Arizona Commerce Authority, and Experience Scottsdale for helping us to support and drive our economic development efforts. So last year, I stood up here, and it seems a lot longer than 12 months ago. I don't know about you, but it's gone by pretty quick in some ways. I shared an update with all of you just weeks before we entered one of the most devastating periods our country and world has ever experienced. I spoke about a few areas of focus we were looking forward to launching, but just like all of you, we had to alter or severely stop our plans. We were planning several campaigns throughout our target markets of Chicago and San Francisco and had a variety of companies we were working with to bring into Scottsdale. Although I'm just as eager today to provide you with an update as I was last year, we cannot escape that our world today is in a much, much different place. And that is why today's event is so important, because it provides an opportunity for us to pause and think about what Scottsdale is, and more importantly, what it can be in the future. So before I talk about some of the initiatives we're looking forward to launching in the coming 12 months, I want to take a little bit of a look back. While our focus the past 12 months has been predominantly on supporting our small businesses, we have seen additional new and exciting economic development activity. We have attracted new businesses, new jobs, and significant capital investment. Even during the pandemic, we saw nearly 700,000 square feet of new office space either constructed or absorbed. And this is a testament to Scottsdale's strength and continued competitive position during a time when companies around the country, around the globe, either suspended or completely terminated their operations. Of Scottsdale's nearly 16,000 businesses, 80% have less than 50 employees, which means our economy is driven by small business. When you take into account that approximately 10 to 15% of businesses across all industry sectors either closed temporarily or permanently during the pandemic, you get to see the clear magnitude this pandemic has had on our business community. The pandemic required our team to adopt a new normal quickly, and just like all of you in our business community, we needed to pivot quickly. We launched the Small Business Assistance Center to help our small businesses navigate the enormous amount of information they were faced with while trying to keep their businesses open. With the assistance of redeployed City of Scottsdale staff from departments throughout the organization, we quickly became experts on PPP loans, small business grants, and other aid that was available. Overall, more than 400 companies took advantage of the center and continued to do so as new programs continued to be rolled out. Through the use of CARES Act funds, we were able to team up with the Scottsdale Industrial Development Authority to roll out Reimburse Scottsdale. With this initiative, we were able to provide businesses with up to $5,000 in reimbursement grants for supplies necessary to remain open. 194 businesses received assistance totaling $625,000. We also recently introduced the Scottsdale Small Business Training Series. Through, again, the additional use of the Scottsdale CARES Act funds, we partnered with Local First Arizona in offering technical training, restaurant boot camps, and one-on-one personal coaching. This free training will be available through May, and as of today, 85 businesses have participated. Scottsdale businesses have weathered the storm like no other, demonstrated incredible resiliency, and served our community in countless ways, and for that, we are all very thankful. So one of the projects we are most proud of this past year is the retention and growth of AXON, who you'll be hearing from a bit with the keynote speaker, Josh Isner, AXON's Chief Revenue Officer. I think that's a pretty cool title, and I'm looking forward to hearing Josh's remarks. A little bit about AXON, why that's so important. AXON was founded in Scottsdale by Rick Smith. So not only are they homegrown, but they are internationally known for their cutting-edge public safety technology. A few years ago, AXON recognized the need to grow their operations and facility and began evaluating options. Scottsdale was at risk of losing this amazing company and the impact they have on our economy. Had AXON expanded outside of Scottsdale, our community would have realized an annual economic impact loss of $340 million. AXON remaining in Scottsdale and building their new state-of-the-art headquarters is a huge win for our community, and we could not be more proud of our partnership. And just last week, we announced that LifeStance, a leading outpatient behavioral healthcare provider, is relocating its corporate headquarters from Bellevue, Washington to Scottsdale. LifeStance will bring over 100 high-paying jobs to Scottsdale and millions in new capital investment. The future isn't as clearly defined as I think all of us would like it to be, but I believe Scottsdale's economy is filled with great promise. This evening, I will be providing the City Council with an overview of the updated draft Economic Development Strategic Plan. This draft plan serves as a guide for steering Scottsdale's economic development values, guiding principles, goals, and objectives. Planning for a post-pandemic economy requires a clear vision, deliberate focus, and very concise, measurable outcomes. As growth in other Valley cities continues and competition for companies accelerates around the globe, our efforts in further diversifying and growing our economy will be even more critical in the coming years. The pandemic has taught us that traditional office models are not always necessary in order to conduct business. There's a wide range of predictions of what companies will and will not do post-pandemic. Scottsdale has approximately 25 million square feet of office space, 13 of which is currently vacant. We have led the Valley in vacancy rates for several years, and I am confident we will continue this trend. Scottsdale's office market is resilient and will rebound. I believe Scottsdale's businesses will return to traditional office space by 2020. Some will go to a permanent remote and a hybrid model. Creating innovative and adaptive reuse of existing office space will be paramount, and the market will adjust to demand. But I'm confident we will continue to dominate in the office market. The tech industry and tech-related jobs will grow at substantial rates over the next several years. Tech drives our economy, and Scottsdale is a leading force in Arizona for attracting top tech companies and talent. The Phoenix metro area saw tech salaries grow by nearly 8% in 2020, which was more than double the national average. As venture capital continues to increase in Arizona, so too will the growth of startups and innovative solutions that will address the opportunities of tomorrow. One of the easiest and most impactful ways all of us can support our small business is to shop in Scottsdale. We have choices on where to spend our resources, but by shopping in Scottsdale, you are supporting your local economy. It does make a difference, I promise you that. In order to help you know just how important it is, we launched a new website, shopinscottsdaleaz.com. If you'll check out this website, you'll see some really cool things that are happening in our small business community and ways that you can continue to support our small businesses. Thank you again to the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce for pulling this critical event together. Each and every one of us is an economic developer and plays a role in supporting our economy. So thank you for all that you do. Thank you for choosing Scottsdale, and have a great Scottsdale day.
And thank you, Rob Millar. And I think that we just had some important description of the work that economic development does, the Office of Economic Development, but probably equal to that is that that noise that we all heard this morning, and I have advised Police Chief Walther, that was Rob Millar, and he was driving through town, the city, with his windows down, listening to Van Halen, Jump. So if you had questions, I think they're answered now. Rob, thanks again for all you do and your team for the city of Scottsdale and working with the Chamber, and I look forward to even more great successes together and moving forward. And along the lines of success, I need to say that it's no surprise that the heroes of our community have been and remain our frontline workers, and many of those are part of Honor Health. Honor Health is the premier healthcare system that we are so proud to call partners at the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, and most importantly for the citizens and the residents of Scottsdale, they are a great resource and have been relentlessly helpful in helping us face the pandemic and how we will come through the pandemic. And today I am very pleased and honored to present Todd LaPorte, the President and CEO of Honor Health. Mr. LaPorte has been in the healthcare industry for over 30 years, providing leadership and insight. Honor Health has 6 acute care hospitals, numerous outpatient facilities, a research institute, various community services that impact the overall quality of life, health, and well-being of Scottsdale. We're very excited and honored to welcome him and his updates. Please welcome CEO of Honor Health, Todd LaPorte.
Well, thank you, Mark. You know, I vowed to never wear a tie again, and for you, I do sport a tie today. I would like to thank you for inviting me to be at this event to embrace the future. This past year at Honor Health has been so focused on the here and now. It's actually quite refreshing to be able to look forward. In fact, looking back actually gives us hope and confidence as we look forward. First, I want to tell you a little bit about who is Honor Health. We are the Scottsdale's largest employer with 12,000 employees. We're the 7th largest employer in the state of Arizona. We just received a bond rating upgrade from Fitch from A to A+. We're proud of that. As Mark indicated, we have 6 hospitals throughout Scottsdale and North Phoenix, but we're not just a hospital system. We have 36 urgent care centers throughout the valley. We have 65 medical group practices with 300 employed physicians. We have a rehab hospital, a research institute, and very proud of our Desert Mission Food Bank. So what was COVID like for us? Well, it started with propping up an incident command center a whole year ago. And what was really amazing about that incident command center is that it really brought together multiple disciplines, multiple subject matter experts to come together because that's what it was going to take to have a world-class response, because we had a world-class level of infection. So we had infection control people, we had supply chain people, we had government relations, which turned out to be very important because of the level of communication we needed to have with public services. Our public relations, our IT function, all of these were so important, believe it or not, to come together beyond just, if you will, focusing on clinical care. So we're proud to announce to you that we adopted some advanced treatments to save and to heal. We continuously improve the methods and the techniques that were necessary to help our patients. So, for example, we used a technique called proning to bring comfort and recovery for respiratory patients. We were one of the first in the country to use an ECMO machine, which is normally used for heart surgery, but we were able to use it to save those with acute COVID infection. We used remdesivir as a medication to shorten recovery time. We used something called BAM-BAM and convalescent plasma treatments to special circumstances. And we are quite convinced that BAM-BAM reduced the amount of hospitalizations that were necessary. So we managed different forms of stress. There was the form of stress on our team. And I do want to take this moment to publicly thank all of my colleagues, especially those of you on the front line, for all that you've endured over this last year. Although we've saved or healed so many, we saw death more frequently. Our chief nursing officer is a military veteran, and she reminded us that this felt like combat over her decade-plus long career. Although our safety measures were so much more heightened than what our employees experienced in their personal lives, and although our employee positivity rate was much lower than experienced in the general community, we still mourn the passing of 4 colleagues from the deadly virus. The last 3 to 4 months, we have had to resource not only care in our hospitals and our medical groups, but also a vaccine site that's been delivering 1,500 to 1,700 doses daily. Our employees and medical staff satisfaction rates maintained during this entire time at a top quartile, even when it was surveyed at the height of the Surge 2 this winter. In fact, let me give you a perspective on the hospital case experience. Surge 1, early July, at its height, 390 cases, 1/4 of our total bed capacity, 90% of our ICU capacity. At the early January, height of Surge 2, 490 cases, 1/3 of our capacity, but only 80% of our ICU, which was encouraging. Today, we are at less than 70 cases, less than 5%, and only 70% of our ICU. So the other stress was our finances. And you need to know that approximately $85 million worth of economic damage was imposed on us through lost revenue or increased costs in serving COVID. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. You would have thought we were flush with business, so to speak. But the reality is COVID had a deteriorative effect. It pushed out non-COVID care and as we were serving COVID. Every 10% of our bed capacity that gets used by COVID serves to reduce our operating margin by 0.5% with each 10% increment. So we have received forms of relief from the federal government, about 90 cents on the dollar, but the long-term effects are still unknown, and we are bracing that there may still yet be some more damage ahead. But why are we so confident? And we are confident about the future. Honor Health was resilient. We've learned so much about how to manage this and future pandemics. We're smarter about how to leverage our large system, especially for cohorting patients and talent. The vaccine is working. We're seeing it, a clear trend of lower infection rate, and especially with our own healthcare workers who are vaccinated in mid-December and through January. We were strong enough to advance some new key strategic initiatives through all this. The new urgent care centers, a new neuroscience institute building, and a bringing together of neurologists and neurosurgeons at a building in downtown Scottsdale. That'll open in May. We have a new behavioral health hospital that will be opening next year near our Shea campus. We were already developing remote and home care capabilities, and really COVID just accelerated those plans. Our financials position stayed strong, if you can believe it, through all this. The feedback we got during our recent bond issue process is that the capital markets are very bullish on Honor Health and Scottsdale. In fact, we received 15x the demand for our bonds during what was the height of the surge. And that was twice the multiple that we had commanded 3 years ago. So our community is resilient. You all are resilient. I understand from GPEC that they are seeing a larger inventory of prospect companies for the Valley than pre-pandemic. The Valley is one of the 3 net migration winners, as we understand it, along with Dallas and Atlanta. The community ultimately embraced the mitigation practices when we needed you to, and we thank you. So some final reflections thinking of the future. Honor Health is embracing our pandemic lessons learned and emerging new realities. We have more advanced safety measures, and they will stick in practice. We will continue to see more care shift to more convenient forms of delivery. We will continue to see healthcare systems like us proactively engage with patients to avoid hospitalizations and in discharge recovery. We will continue to collaborate more with social services to jointly impact what we call social determinants of health: transportation, housing, food insecurity. And Honor Health understands the importance of our entire community, the businesses, the public services. We understand you need to be strong. So we will continue to avail ourselves to you so you can have continued success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Todd. Greatly appreciate your taking the time to be with us this morning and share some of the insights on behalf of Honor Health and all the many employees and hard workers that are protecting us and helping us through this pandemic time. It's really quite remarkable. And when he mentioned lessons learned, I can tell you that they are constantly looking at ways to improve and looking at ways to help us, their customers, the residents, and all of their patients. So thank you to the staff, the leadership for Honor Health. They're a great partner, and we're grateful, very grateful for you to be here today. And along those lines, I should say that Gerd Wuestemann, Dr. Wuestemann, and Scottsdale Arts has gone through remarkable efforts to make sure that we are compliant with all the best health and safety standards going into today's Scottsdale Forward. As a matter of fact, we had hoped we would have a chance to be somewhat in person or a hybrid, but we're always going to err on the side of caution. And I have to say that they have been remarkable in the due diligence to make sure that everyone that is here today, all the speakers, are socially distanced, wearing masks, and obviously temperature checks. They've been doing a remarkable job and looking out for the folks that are here today, and they'll continue to do that as their customers and come back to the Scottsdale Arts. I also want to say thank you, a special thank you to Renee Higgs. You know, the Chamber works on volunteers. I mean, we thrive on volunteer effort, and you'll see Renee has volunteered. She's with Heartland Financial to come out in between all of the speakers, and she is. She's been helping wipe down the podium, and she's just, she's a wonderful volunteer and a great leader, and we're thankful for her being here today. As we move to the next speaker, I think you may have recalled that Rob Millar spoke a little bit about AXON. And we're very proud and excited that Rick Smith and the team at AXON has decided to continue their wonderful trajectory, working in Scottsdale as their headquarters, employing so many folks and bringing such innovation and technology through their efforts and their research. Today, we're very excited to welcome the Chief Revenue Officer, who's going to speak to us today, and that's Josh Isner. Josh, in that responsibility, manages global growth, customer service, professional services, and sales operations. Josh joined AXON in 2009 as a member of their leadership development team, and after rotating through different departments in the company, he eventually helmed to lead domestic video and the cloud sales team to a record year in 2014. Josh previously held roles as Director of Leadership Development, Northeast Regional Sales, and Vice President of Video and Cloud Sales at Taser. Josh has a BS degree in Government and Political Science from Harvard University. It's an honor and very excited to welcome Josh Isner with AXON.
Well, thanks very much, Mark. I'm very excited to be here this morning. As Mark mentioned, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at AXON, formerly called Taser. Been there 12 years, and it's been an incredible ride. We've been in Scottsdale since the mid-90s. We opened our original headquarters in 2005. We're starting to plan to open our second headquarters in Scottsdale in the coming years. So before we get into talking about AXON and our products and where we're going, first, I'd love to chat briefly about what's happening generally in technology and law enforcement. So to start things off, we show this poll pretty much at every event we do with our customers, and we poll the audience and we ask a simple question: where do you have better technology today, in your personal life or at work? And the results here are very consistent across the board. Generally speaking, we see about 80% of our customers say, I actually have way better technology in my life as a consumer than I do as a professional. And this is a major problem. It's a major problem for a couple reasons. The first of which is when we empower our customers to protect us and our communities, we want them to have the best technology possible. That way they can keep our communities safe. But even more so, once you fall behind, it is even harder to catch up. And that's because technology is accelerating exponentially. Okay, the speed of a microprocessor doubles every 18 months. So the curve is very steep at this point. So when you fall behind that curve, catching up takes a lot of work. And so let me give you an example of this. We'll talk about self-driving cars. We're starting to see them on the road here and there. In 2004, DARPA came out and said, bring it. We want to see what you can do in self-driving cars. They set up an 150-mile track, and they challenged anyone who could to come and have their self-driving car drive that track. The winning company, their self-driving car, drove a whopping 8 miles in a whopping 8 hours. But 6 years later, all of a sudden in San Francisco, we saw the Google car driving around on the highways. The car drove 140,000 miles and got in one accident. And that one accident was because it was rear-ended by a human driver. And of course today, if you own a Tesla, you're cruising around on your cell phone reading the newspaper on the highway as your Tesla drives itself toward your destination. And we're seeing that capability across all automobile manufacturers at this point. And so this is an example of a technology that went from non-existent, embarrassing, laughable in a 15-year period to mainstream. Another one, Airbnb. Now, 10 years ago, even 6 or 7 years ago, not many people knew what this was. They were still staying at Marriott's and Sheraton's and so forth. Now Airbnb has trumped all of the hotel brands in America and is one of the more popular ways to go on vacation and stay. And so as technology progresses in our consumer lives, we start to see a bigger gap between what consumers have and what police have. And part of that is because of the procurement process that takes place in government, which really is something that's a multi-year process at times. So you write specs in 2021, by the time you've deployed that product in 2023, all of a sudden, you're 2 years behind. You got what you wanted 2 years ago, not what you want now. And so we're trying to change that by introducing new technologies into law enforcement and government as fast as we can to help our customers catch up. So at AXON, our goal, our mission is to protect life. Very simple. We take it very seriously. It started with our TASER business years ago. And as we think about the different technologies we deploy into public safety now, we'll start with the TASER business. So our founder, Rick Smith, had two friends named Todd and Corey. They were killed in a road rage incident just down the street here in Gainey Ranch in 1990. Someone was having a bad day. There was some altercation on the road. They pull off the road into the parking lot, and the driver had a gun in their glove compartment and shot Rick's two friends. Rick at that point said, there's got to be a better way to do this. Technology in pretty much every other avenue is improving, but to resolve conflict, we still shoot holes in people, for lack of a better term. So our first mission is to make the bullet obsolete. And this is not commentary on gun ownership and so forth. It's an acknowledgement that there are better ways to resolve conflict in 2021 than shooting people, as folks have for hundreds of years. And the way we do that is through the TASER. Now, the TASER is an electronic device, shoots out two darts. They make contact with the skin. They conduct a circuit between those darts. That leads to what we call neuromuscular incapacitation. When the circuit is connected, there's electrical waves going through your body in a very similar waveform as your brain waves. This causes your muscles to tense up. You're not able to really do anything other than fall down. Police can take you into custody safer. This drives much lower injury rates for both suspects and police officers. And we're very, very proud of this product. We've saved over 200,000 lives. These are incidents where a police officer could have used, in a very lawful and justified way, lethal force, and instead chose to deploy a TASER. And we'll show you a couple examples of this on the video here. Now, this is a man in Brazil. He's actually cutting himself with razors. Police officer deploys a TASER, razor dropped, suspect under control. Armed robbery in the UK. You see the suspect chasing the officers with a knife. Officer from the London Metropolitan Police comes in, deploys a TASER. Suspect drops the knife and is in custody. Here we've got a person in Colombia cutting themselves with broken glass. TASER deployed, threat is over. This is in New Zealand, resisting arrest. Suspect armed with a knife, swinging it around. Again, you can see the wires there from the TASER. Darts are connected to the skin. Suspect is now in custody. This is a really interesting one. Person with a knife chasing police. They keep their distance. One police officer comes forward with the TASER. Suspect in custody. Again, safely. No injuries to the officers or the suspect. This was on Fox News. And lastly, here's a gentleman in Buckingham Palace threatening to hurt himself with a knife. Starts swinging at the officer. Again, TASER is deployed. Suspect goes down safely. Now, most of these scenarios could have justifiably ended with use of force in a lethal fashion, especially the ones where suspect is swinging the knife, moving forward toward officers. We're really proud of the fact that we've come out with a device that can stop those threats without killing people. And as we move forward, our goal is to make the TASER so reliable that the darts penetrate the skin every time, and it will outperform a 9mm. Now, as you can imagine, if someone is shot, a lot of times they can still fire back. They are not immediately incapacitated. Our goal is to make the TASER so effective that the minute those darts hit the skin, the threat is over. And that's what we're working towards every day. Now, interestingly enough, the taser led to body cameras. We love to tell this story where there were questions about how tasers were being used in the field. And we said, hey, let's put a camera on the taser. All of a sudden, we start to get context into what's happening. And police officers are starting to deploy these cameras on tasers because it's telling their story. It's showing what they're facing in the field. So in 2009 and 10, we said, well, maybe we should consider putting the camera on the officer instead of on the taser. And so we did. And thus, body cameras were born. Now, as we think about the impact of body cameras, we really focus on this idea of reducing social conflict. So all of us are aware of the events that have happened in the last year, and these are front and center more than ever. The idea of transparency, the idea of mutual accountability, the idea of showing police doing the right thing, and giving police administrators a look into the folks that, hey, maybe policing isn't the right field for them. Understanding that whole dynamic in an accountable and transparent way is something that we continue to strive toward as we develop better and better body cameras. And our new body camera is called the AXON Body 3. It's capable of live streaming. It's got a 12-hour battery life. Officers love the fact that they automatically activate in the field whenever you deploy a taser or a firearm. The camera automatically turns on. Even when you put your blue lights on in your car, the body camera will automatically activate. So our goal is to make sure that police don't have to remember to turn these on. And the benefits of body cameras, while we've seen it all along, are just the research is so convincing that these are helping to de-escalate. We see complaints against police officers are down 93% of the time. Use of force down 70% of the time. That's because when you know you're on video, you act differently. Guilty pleas up 20% of the time. And officers are spending 70% less time in court because oftentimes the body camera can tell the story. Now, here's an example of a video where this happened in Baltimore, and the early headlines were police shoot suspect in the back who was fleeing, okay? Find the body camera, and here's the video, and I'll try to walk you through it as we're watching it. You see the police officer chasing this suspect. He clearly has a gun in his hand. And then right here, he turns around and points it at the officer. The officer deploys the firearm. Suspect drops the gun. Suspect is then in custody. So you can imagine the headline. Shots fired! Shots fired! You can imagine the headline in the storyline if this video wasn't available. With the body camera, it tells the officer's story, and with the high-definition video, you can break it down frame by frame and see exactly what happened. We really, really believe that these cameras are catching police doing the right thing the vast majority of the time, and that's really important. That's a really important narrative to put out there, because oftentimes the only ones that people actually hear about are the ones that don't go as well. And of course, those must be addressed as well. But the idea that this transparency is brought to law enforcement in a constructive and productive way is something we're very, very proud of. Now, just as the tasers led to us deploying body cams into police, body cams drove our next insight, which was, wow, there's a lot of content being generated by police. In fact, we manage about 10 times as much content as the entire Netflix library at this point. And so our focus became, how do we solve this problem of ingesting this much digital evidence into police forces? And police are very, very, very passionate about fighting crime and keeping communities safe. They are not nearly as passionate about managing complex IT solutions. Oftentimes, if you ask a police chief, that's the biggest headache in their job. How do you manage all this infrastructure? How do you build data centers? This stuff is not fun. It's very, very complicated. And we want to do that for our customer. And thus, we've developed a cloud ecosystem called evidence.com that connects people, devices, and applications together. And it allows police to outsource the management of this huge amount of evidence that they're taking in every day. And while this is a simple version on this slide of what evidence.com is, this is a more accurate version. And what you see here, we don't expect you to read all the different terms here, but what you see is a connection between sensors, people, and applications. Sensors like body cameras, in-car cameras, drones, fixed cameras, evidence taken off cell phones. And they connect to people like police officers, district attorneys, public defenders, the media. So all of these things work together to accelerate the justice cycle and make sure that this evidence can move securely and efficiently through the prosecutorial process and so forth. Now, the next kind of big insight here is once you have all this data, you can gain insights from it. And so we're using artificial intelligence to do things like categorize these videos for police. The computer can recognize use of force and tag those incidents. Additionally, we use tools like transcription. We don't want police officers to be data entry clerks. We want them to be in our communities keeping us safe. And thus, when an officer can just say what happened and have it transcribed into a police record, that saves them a ton of time. We think about 60 to 70% of police time right now is spent writing reports. If we can solve that problem, all of a sudden, you don't have to pay as much overtime to have other police officers out in the field while you're writing reports. Police can be more effective at their jobs, keeping communities safer. And the benefit of AI is it leads to this virtuous cycle where you take data in, it trains the models in AI, and then it's deployed to the users to show them the insights that have been gained. And those users then drive more content into the system through body cameras and other ingestion of content. The computer learns, and that cycle continues. And so we can really help drive meaningful insights. You can think about how police might deploy different resources based on the incidents that they're seeing. You think about how you can train better when you see certain things happening over and over again. This is the type of value AI can really add. And so those are the products that are available right now. Now, as we look into what's next for AXON, we're really excited across all of our opportunities and projects in both hardware and software. The first step in this process has actually been recruiting. How do we change from a hardware manufacturers in the 90s and early 2000s to a full technology company and an Internet of Things company that deploys hardware and software to public safety? And Scottsdale has just been a tremendous place for us to be headquartered to achieve this. We did open an office about 10 years ago in Seattle because, frankly, that's where all of the tech talent was concentrated at the time. 10 years later, we're hiring teams in Scottsdale that are doing both hardware and software engineering, that are doing product management, that are doing technical program management. We're really excited by this. We see other companies like Amazon and Zoom opening up offices in Scottsdale. This is a great sign, and we're really proud of the fact that we were one of the early companies here, and we can't thank the City of Scottsdale enough and the Chamber of Commerce for supporting our mission and our goals along the way. So as we deploy that talent into new products, the first of which is both AXON Records and AXON Respond. These two major products combine to be the operating system of public safety. When you call 911, AXON Respond allows police to dispatch officers as fast as they can to a suspect. They allow a police officer to see a live stream of what's happening for situational awareness. They allow somebody who called the police to transfer evidence to the police that they might have taken in on their cell phone. This is all of what happens kind of before the incident takes place. Then after the incident, AXON Records is the system that allows police to save time by reporting faster, by using transcription, by using digital evidence at the heart of the police record so that police aren't taxed with this essay writing exercise that tends to take place to have to really, like we said, become a data input specialist. Okay, we want to avoid that altogether, and our AXON Records solution does that. So over the next 10 years, we're very excited to really support our customers in a way that allows them to be more efficient, and technology is at the center of that. Now, a couple other cool things we're working on. AXON Air, this is our drone program. 10 years ago, no one really thought about drones. You heard a couple years ago about how Amazon might start to deliver products via drones. Imagine a police officer who has a drone on the roof of their car, and they're able to avoid chasing down a suspect, which is the cause of police deaths every year. Instead, you send a drone up in the air to follow a car and gives the officer situational awareness of what they're seeing, where the car stopped, and allows them to be more responsive in a much safer fashion. Or if there's a suspicious activity, maybe a drug house in a city, all of a sudden you can throw a drone up in the air and get complete awareness of what's happening around that house. A team can plan to enter the house in a safe fashion that protects police, doesn't expose them to potential violence inside. These are the things that drones are actively doing in policing today. They call it drone as a first responder. Okay, and of course we have to be very, very responsible with privacy, and certainly we're working with elected officials to achieve that. But the idea of using drones to gather situational awareness for police is something that we're very excited about in a way to keep police safer, and again, to make sure that these incidents end in a safer fashion. We run all the software on the back end that allows pilots to pilot their drones. We also allow all that footage to integrate back into evidence.com. So we're very, very excited about AXON Air. And then maybe the product we're most excited about, and we're going to be launching in a few weeks here, is virtual reality. We're really, really excited about this one. Police have been training in our virtual reality for 2 years now in what we call community engagement training. This allows police officers to get comfortable dealing with scenarios they might see in the field before they ever see them live. Things like folks in mental health crises, PTSD, Alzheimer's, hard of hearing. It also trains in things like peer intervention, which we saw front and center in the tragic events in Minneapolis last year, that peer intervention is an opportunity to flag early signs that someone might not be doing the right thing and allow a lower ranking officer to intervene to safely de-escalate. And so you might see your kids using virtual reality these days, playing games on it, but what might not be apparent is in virtual reality, you retain data 80% better because you were fully immersed in it. You were seeing it and living it. So as we prepare officers for what they're going to see in the field, we're able to simulate that type of stress, which allows officers to practice more and more. And we say, you can stay ready instead of having to get ready. And these modules all of a sudden can be deployed in a very easy fashion to numerous locations instead of causing police to all have to come to one place to train. And so we think the ability to practice over and over again as much as a police officer would like and track their progress is something that's going to be very, very exciting. And as I mentioned, as we launch this over the coming weeks, we'll have some new products coming out along with the community engagement training that we're very excited to talk about. So I'm going to share a video here that kind of brings all of this together, and this is kind of the vision of what AXON is to police and how we partner with our customers. So we'll let it play here. Oops. Let's see if we can play that video maybe from the back here.
Dispatched all available units. Active domestic 756 East Maple Street, unknown.
So with that, I just want to share, we're very, very proud of the progress we've made. Of course, there's a lot of work still to be done, and in partnership with our customers, we're really excited about continuing to fulfill our mission and have a big impact in public safety. I'd also say that we take a lot of pride in being a Scottsdale-based company. I moved out to Scottsdale in 2009, and I came right out of college and drove out 2 weeks later, had no idea what to expect out here. And now as we recruit more and more people to Scottsdale, I can honestly tell them there is no better place in the United States to live than this city. I tell them it's like being on vacation every day. You walk out, the sun hits your face, you're immediately in a good mood. It's a large, clean city. The cost of living is low. This is, I think, one of the easiest places to recruit folks from other markets right now, and we're seeing that. And so as we prepare to build our next headquarters here, we just want to thank everybody at the City of Scottsdale and the Chamber of Commerce for supporting us and allowing us to continue to achieve our mission of protecting life together. So thank you very much. Stay safe and have a great rest of the week. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Josh. I think that's an amazing story for AXON and what they bring to the world for non-lethal law enforcement and all the incredible technology that AXON and their team is doing. And we're very proud as well that they're headquartered in Scottsdale and excited for the evolution of the company. And Josh did an amazing job. Towards that end, I'd also say thank you to everybody at home that's viewing today, that so many of you that have texted and asked if Rob Millar and I would do a taser duel here on the stage. And I was informed, sadly, by our Vice President and the executive producer of today's event, Cherie Valentino, that the agenda just won't allow for that. So I'll just put that on maybe a future chamber event. We'll get that done. But in all sincerity, AXON, thank you so much for all that you do, and Josh for being here this morning. We're going to move on to our panel discussion now, which should be very lively, and we're very grateful that we have Melinda Morrison-Gulick, who's the moderator for today's panel. Melinda is a longtime Scottsdale leader. She grew up in the Valley. She serves on many boards and commissions, including the Scottsdale Area Chamber of Commerce, the Arizona Humane Society, the Phoenix Women's Board of Steele Children's Research Center, and many others. She's a volunteer at Cherokee Elementary School, a proud mother of two, and a volunteer and a member at St. Barnabas Desert Episcopal Church. She's received many accolades and recognitions for many various accomplishments, including her work on behalf of the McDowell-Sonoran Preserve right here in Scottsdale. We're very grateful for her efforts and her leadership in the community. She's also currently the Chief of Staff for GPO Health, overseeing business operations, human resources, marketing, and public relations for the data technology company. Very grateful to welcome Melinda Morrison-Gulick as our moderator for the panel discussion. Thank you, Melinda.
Thank you, Mark. I'm delighted to be here and to welcome Mayor David Ortega, Chief of Police Jeff Walther, and SUSD Superintendent Scott Menzel. It's an honor to have three key new significant community leaders with us this morning, and they'll take a few minutes to introduce themselves.
Well, good morning. Scottsdale is an amazing journey for me. I'm an Arizona kid and came from a very small town of 8,000 to Scottsdale, which had 80,000 at the time. I apprenticed with an architect here in Scottsdale and grew a family and became a councilman 20 years ago. So here we are today, and I'm in a position with the leadership role
and great expectations. Last year at this time, I know Tom, Betty, and Tammy and I were in the audience. And today we have no audience except virtually. So I appreciate being here and listening and contributing to what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief?
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here, and I'd love to say it's great to see everybody, but seeing everybody virtually. I'm Jeff Walther. I'm your new police chief. I've been with the Scottsdale Police Department. I came to the Scottsdale Police Department in 1994 as a patrol officer, and just had a wonderful career, rose through the ranks, a number of different assignments through sergeant, lieutenant, district commander, and then I retired from the Scottsdale Police Department in May of 2018 as the Assistant Chief of Police over the Uniformed Services Bureau and Special Operations Division. Scottsdale has been my home. It's an amazing, amazing place. And it's just, like the mayor, I raised children here in the Valley, and once they were grown up and out and doing their own thing and no longer on my dole, so to speak, my wife said, hey, let's move on. Let's go somewhere else for a little. Let's try a new adventure, and we did. And so I moved out of the Valley shortly after I retired in May of 18 and moved to the small community of Alpine, Arizona, where I just had a wonderful time the 2.5 years that I was away from Scottsdale and away from the Valley. And then in October, I got a call back from City Manager Jim Thompson, who asked for my help, said that he needed me. And I said, great, what do you need me for? And he said, I need you to come back and be the chief. And so once Alan Rodbell retired, I assumed the role of the chief of police on December 1st of 2020, and it's been a very busy almost 3.5 months. And then the city manager and I came to an agreement, and he asked me to stay, and I accepted. And so I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be with you for the foreseeable future and great years to come as Scottsdale continues to be the progressive and exceptional place that it is. So thankful to be here.
Thank you, Chief, and welcome. He was made official permanent chief on Friday, so congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Menzel.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I am the newest Scottsdale leader on the panel this morning. I moved here June 25th of 2020 after having served 18 years in Michigan as superintendent in a number of different school districts. Coming to the Valley is one of those things where your wife wanted to move to a different experience. Mine wanted to move from Michigan winters to someplace that was more temperate, and this time of year is truly magical from an environmental perspective. Leading Scottsdale Unified School District has been a tremendous honor during this challenging time, and it's been great to get to meet people and look forward to the conversation this morning.
Thank you so much, Dr. Menzel. So I have questions for all of you and then questions for each of you individually, and we'll start with an easy one. As we all know, 2020 was a year unlike any other in the history of our country and our community. How have you pivoted to respond to all the challenges, in addition to the challenges presented by the pandemic? Mayor?
Well, in June, we will celebrate because Scottsdale will be 70 years old. And in 1951, when Scottsdale was founded, there was a worldwide pandemic. Schools were frozen. There was a fear factor that was unbelievable. And it wasn't until 1954, about 3 years later, that a vaccination was found for polio. So Scottsdale, in its origins, was founded at a time of pandemic. Scottsdale was also founded at a time of racial injustice, segregation, and other factors that placed obstacles in front of regular citizens of color and females, and all those other areas that were troubling to our society. So here we are facing a pandemic with other speakers mentioned how our healthcare system has responded, how our law enforcement, public safety has responded, and of course, now as a leader of Scottsdale, I've mentioned how our council is confronting and moving forward, both as an organization, that is a municipal corporation, and of course, in the interactions in enabling all the private sector as much as possible to move forward. And in a way, this crisis is a repeating crisis. But what we've also found during the last 70 years, and I've been in Scottsdale 42 years of that, so it's kind of amazing, more than half of the age of Scottsdale. But what it means to me is a great responsibility to use all the resources, all the creativity and innovation to get through this together. What we found in the 70-year history is that Scottsdale has always maintained quality, and that's what we're drawing upon today, our quality and character to move us forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief?
Thank you, and I'm going to play off one of the words that Mayor Ortega used, and that is crisis. So when you think about 2020, you're going to think, from this point forward, we're going to think about the number of crises that we've had in 2020, and how in the police department and law enforcement in particular have we pivoted. And so in that crisis, be it the pandemic, be it social unrest, be it social injustice, there are some other crises that have come about related to that. And when we think about those, one of the things that we're seeing, and we talked about it earlier down in the green room, first time in the green room, kind of cool, was the mental health crisis. And how are we organizationally pivoting to deal with that mental health crisis? And so some of the things that we do great in Scottsdale, in the Scottsdale Police Department, is we have police crisis intervention services, which is master's level counselors, mental health counselors that we've had in the organization since the 70s, since the mid 70s. And then we also on the patrol side, we train in the 40-hour crisis intervention training program that is about dealing with people in crisis and de-escalation during that crisis. And so what we've done in 2020, or since then, since I took over on December 1st of 2020, now we've created and are just getting ready to staff a new crisis response team, which I think will really be kind of the three legs of a stool, so to speak, and will really support one another. And that crisis response team is going to be 4 detectives and a sergeant that are responsible for emergency committal orders and dealing and follow-up with the follow-up related to the mental health crisis. You see that there's no way to get around it, but so much of what happens in our city, in our state, and in the country falls on the shoulders of law enforcement, be it the mental health issues or COVID-related enforcement related to the governor's executive order or the mayor's proclamation on mask mandates and social distancing. And so that has largely fallen on us with our partners in the Arizona Department of Health and the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control in really helping to monitor that. And our goal has always really been with our businesses, our bars, our clubs, our restaurants, to really work in partnership, very collaboratively with gaining voluntary compliance. And so you see a lot of these things going on, and I think we've been pivoting nicely to address those issues.
Thank you, Chief. Dr. Menzel?
A year ago, last March, Scottsdale Unified School District students went off on spring break, and they didn't come back again. And our world changed pretty significantly. Our teachers had to pivot and provide online educational opportunities for the fourth quarter of last year. As a district, we've been pivoting multiple times throughout the pandemic. As we learn new information, we're able to take different action. And so it's been, as an organization, a time of really being nimble, adapting to the changing environment, and implementing new strategies. And so I really need to give a shout out to my teachers and staff in Scottsdale Unified School District who have been responsive to the ever-changing environment. So pivot is one of our key words. In fact, in our planning sessions with our leadership team, we continue to talk about how important it is to be flexible and to incorporate new learning so that we can best meet the needs of the students in the district.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. And as an SUSD parent, I'd like to particularly thank you for your leadership. So we've talked a little bit about how we responded looking backwards to 2020, but what do you see as the lasting effects of the social justice and human rights issues? And in your role, How do you plan to reduce the inequalities and increase collaboration across Scottsdale to build a stronger community? Mayor, let's start with you.
Thank you. Scottsdale has always had the reputation of being a destination, hospitable, incomparable, desert, and a citizen-driven community where we're sophisticated enough to join the conversation, create our city in a well-planned way, and evolve a general plan, which is part of our virtual blueprint for the city. But the basis of that has to be rooted in equality, fairness, and really attracting the wonderful talent, regardless of race, color, religion, and certainly regardless of sex. And when I say that, Scottsdale will be moving forward as a council with the full discussion of an anti-discrimination ordinance. We feel it's past due. We feel that the discussion should be always inclusionary, and should also be just great business, a great way to welcome citizens from everywhere in all the world, and whether they be visitors or, of course, to take residence here in Scottsdale. That's what Arizona was when my family came here many, many generations ago, and that's where we want to be as we move forward.
Thank you. Chief?
I'd say let's start talking about dialogue and collaboration. In my profession, when you look back at 2020, and it was a very difficult year, not just in law enforcement, but in the country. When you talk about inequalities and social justice, a lot of that stems from a failed dialogue or a failed thought process, failed policy. And so we have to be willing to have open dialogue and collaboration with our citizens. I often use this analogy is that when police, if you look around the country, those police departments that are having struggles with their community, oftentimes they don't see themselves as part of the community. They see themselves as above the community. And when you see yourself as above the community, it's a short distance between then seeing yourself as an occupying army. And in Scottsdale, in the time that I've been here since 1994, in the mid-90s, we started really embracing then the big push for community policing, and started attending the problem-oriented policing conferences offered to us in San Diego at the time, and started really that slow ball rolling toward the idea of understanding diversity and inclusion and dialogue and partnerships with our community. And so today, we're just increasing those robust efforts to making sure that we are very transparent, that we have great dialogue with our citizenry, that we are collaborative in nature. If you look at the size of the city, it's not possible for our police department, for any police department for that matter, to do it by themselves. We must leverage the relationships we have with our residents and our business community to police effectively and appropriately. One last comment on that is what we're doing now is all of our officers and our professional staff, we put everybody through a fair and impartial policing training, really to just root out any issues or concerns. The goal is to have exceptional dialogue based on the issues at hand today, and I think that puts us in a great position moving forward.
Thank you very much. Dr. Menzel?
Thank you. Scottsdale Unified School District is a reflection of the larger community. We're a diverse school district. 62% of our student population are identified as white, 23% as Hispanic, another 5.5% Asian American, 4% African American, 2.5% are Native Indian. And so we look at the population we serve and ask fundamental questions in terms of how well are we meeting the needs of our students. More than a year ago, there was a teen town hall held at Arcadia High School. And while I wasn't a participant, I've heard a lot of really important stories about what the students shared in terms of their experience and their reality. And our goal as a school district is to ensure that race and place don't determine a child's destiny. Regardless of zip code, every student in Scottsdale Unified School District should have the opportunity to achieve their full potential, should be treated with respect and valued as a human being. And so we look at how to promote and support diversity, equity, inclusion, and create a sense of belonging for all of our students and staff, a welcoming environment that helps unlock the potential for each and every student that we serve.
Thank you very much. Mayor, you've talked a little bit about the general plan and the anti-discrimination ordinance. Just two representations of how the community has been divided on multiple fronts. How do you plan to approach unifying Scottsdale?
Well, you know, this last year is like no other, but even one of the things I'm most proud of is that in spite of COVID, in spite of the distancing factors, the last election, Scottsdale performed at the top, 86.25% turnout. People participated and shared their voice by voting in spite of those obstacles. We will also see a census come forward. It's been delayed because of the COVID, but it will show that Scottsdale has grown even more diverse in population of every sector that Doctor just mentioned. So when we have a sophisticated city which votes and expresses themselves, I see that as a positive, not as a mark of division. The biggest division would be apathy, where there would be 30% turnout because people were either shut out or alienated from our government. So my belief and my task is that our local government, our city government, has to be the most accountable and connected with our citizens, with all stakeholders, businesses, and so forth, educators, of course, and in partnership with the public safety. So I look for that reconnection of City Hall, and I know that my colleagues on council are working every day to make that happen. That's the most positive outlook because Scottsdale, you know, it's always been based on social closeness, right? We can enjoy venues, we can rub shoulders and all that. And that's what we miss the most because we're so event-oriented and so forth. So, you know, distance has made us, has built up a pent-up need to, when the pandemic eases, to get back, and I know we will, with so much potential, joy and energy, just recover in a very positive way.
Thank you, Mayor. We do enjoy the biggest, smallest town. It's a very connected community, so thank you for that. We all miss it. Chief, we've seen a year of social unrest. In fact, who ever would have thought that we'd see a riot at Scottsdale Fashion Square? What did your team learn from that, and how do you plan to move forward from that as a department and as a community?
It's a great question. I wind up getting some semblance of that question fairly regularly. Sure. And I'm going to start out with one word, and it's called intelligence. And I'll get to that. I'll come back to that in a second. But I want to point out there were some positives, not just for Scottsdale and Scottsdale PD, but the law enforcement community throughout the valley as a result of the riots at Fashion Square. And those positives were nobody got hurt. There was no loss of life. We were able to prevent fires from being started. But there were some great things that we learned coming out of that, and intelligence, and I talk about intelligence. And it's one of the things that looking in the organization, when we talk about reprioritizing our goals and directives in the organization, intelligence is one of those things. And so we have a great intelligence section, but we looked at that and said, is there an opportunity for it to be more robust? And give you the example, and related to Fashion Square, was Our intelligence that we had received was that we're going to see about 50 protesters. What we got was 950 protesters, and so we staffed that accordingly for about 50 folks. And so when we got 950 and they weren't protesters, they were largely anarchists. And that's something that we have to regularly pay attention to when we have groups gathering, is that group there to protest per their constitutional rights, or are they there to do damage and destruction and create anarchy? And so increasing that intelligence footprint has been a priority, and we're meeting with some great success in that. That event also, I'll use the word from the first question about pivoting, or it might have been the second question about pivoting. In the larger Valley structure, we all recognized that there was an opportunity for us to even enhance our relationships department to department. And so those relationships are essential and have been fantastic, because all the other surrounding cities looked at what happened to Scottsdale and Scottsdale Fashion Square and said, oh boy, that could be us. That could be Chandler Fashion Center. That could be Santan Mall out in Gilbert. And so that has really helped us create an even more robust collaborative relationship with all the Valley agencies. And internally, we really focused on that intelligence function and then how we deploy. The last thing I'll speak to related to that is, in preparation for the inauguration, there was also that same kind of feeling and that same kind of chatter about protests, be it at local government or state government buildings. And so how we see that footprint now is really about putting the right number, what we believe the right number of resources are to handle just about any eventuality. And so that's a change for us moving forward.
Thank you very much, Chief. So late breaking news, Dr. Menzel, just last week, the governing board voted to send middle school and high school kids back to school full-time starting next Monday. What is your approach to getting kids and teachers back into this classroom safely next week? And a couple parts to that. How do you balance the needs of the parents and the teachers and the students to make this work? And then if you could also talk a little bit about, there's lots of talk in the parent community about a lost year of instruction. Is this true? And if so, how do you address it? So a big question for you with a couple parts.
Well,
Thanks.
I appreciate that, and if I forget to answer a part of the questions, I hope you'll come back.
I'll remind you.
So first, we serve nearly 22,000 students in Scottsdale, and our elementary students have been back every day, all day since mid-September. And
thank you for that.
And we believe, and I think you'll see this with both the first governing board that hired me and the current governing board, that we put students at the center of the decisions that we're making. And there's not a clear right or wrong answer in the pandemic, but doing the best that we can to meet the needs of our students is critical. And the most recent decision to return to a full day of teaching and learning for our middle school and high school students is part of that process. I expect that our students and staff will come back on March 15th, and we'll learn some new routines. It will be like a first day of school all over again. For our sixth graders who came into middle school, or our freshmen into high school, they're going to have some experiences that they were denied at the beginning of this current year. For me, it was really hard to conceptualize not making an effort at full-day return, given everything that our students have lost during the pandemic. At the same time, our teachers, they know how to deliver a full day of instruction. I think the biggest challenge will be balancing between the in-person and those students who remain online through enhanced distance learning. That's the biggest challenge for our teachers, also for some of our staff, the amount of screen time. So we're working on strategies to provide screen breaks that are intentional. And as you know, we've implemented layered mitigation strategies. We've got an entirely new lexicon of things: personal protective equipment, layered mitigation, physical distancing. We should be washing hands all of the time anyway, so that shouldn't be novel to people. But you know, in schools, we've implemented new routines and practices in order to ensure that we can safely have in-person instruction without seeing an increase in spread of COVID in the student population. I need to give a shout out to Honor Health. I am so grateful for the partnership so that our teachers could be vaccinated. More than 2/3 of our employees took advantage of that opportunity. And so we're in a place where I think Scottsdale can successfully return to some level of normalcy. It's all going to be different as a result of the pandemic, but we're going to be able to finish strong in the fourth quarter. To the question about a lost year of learning, I don't see it that way. I think that learning has been disrupted, in some cases delayed, but it's not a lost year of learning. Our teachers have been working with students since August 10th, the first day of school. It started online, and then gradually we moved back to in-person. We are, as a district, working on identifying where there may be gaps or a need to accelerate learning for students who might be behind where they typically would be. So we're putting in place a plan for summer learning opportunities. It'll be at no cost to our parents so that we can help students who are behind catch up. That way, when we return in the fall, we'll be prepared to hit the ground running.
Thank you very much. So each of you have talked a little bit about some of the priorities in response to the questions, but I wonder, Chief, if you would talk a little bit about what other priorities you have in 2021.
Great. Some of the things that we've talked about already is that police departments must be better at engaging with the community. They must be better at transparency. They must be better at that overall communication. And so one of the things that we're now moving forward with is we have a public information office that I'm changing into the community engagement section. The goal of that group really is to enhance the external communications from the police department out to our citizenry. That's also going to include a public education specialist, and a digital media specialist that's going to be really focused on our social media platforms and opportunities that we have to engage the community in today's technology and in today's language. I think we talked about down in the green room that my parents would go 3 days, in the 80s in between print media, and that was okay with them. If you go 3 days today, especially as a large police department, without communicating to your citizenry, that's not the right thing to do. We need to constantly be engaged in communicating and at meetings and participating in panels and forums, much like this one, to get the message out. It's important for a police department in today's day and age to really participate in the narrative. And so we're going to continue to do that. That focus, that communications focus, is internal to the organization and external. I'm going to do my first podcast out to the citizenry late this month to entertain questions that people that are pressing about what's the Scottsdale Police Department doing about this issue or that issue or downtown issues or short-term rentals, and so there's always an opportunity for us to continue to engage our citizenry to make sure that we're participating in the narrative. The second thing is the creation of a human exploitation unit. When I mention human exploitation unit, and I tell our citizens and our folks that that's going to focus specifically on human trafficking and internet crimes against children, I always get the same question. In Scottsdale? Yes, Scottsdale with a great tourist trade, resorts, etc. We have the same problems and issues of any big city, and so those are some things that we want to address very specifically to reduce those incidents of those crimes and reduce those incidents of crisis in our community. So those are a couple of things we have moving forward.
Thank you very much. Dr. Menzel, other priorities for 2021?
So as you know, the last 9 months, we've spent most of our time responding to the COVID crisis. But as a district, we have an opportunity to really think about the future and where we're going. Recently, we've launched our strategic planning effort. And unlike some conventional strategic planning efforts, we're not starting from where we are and then developing an incremental plan forward. We're really trying to step back and paint a desired destination picture of where Scottsdale Unified will be in the next 10 years. We are hoping for an aspirational and inspirational vision of what the community wants and needs and expects for our students. You heard earlier in the presentation from Josh that we are seeing rapid changes in terms of artificial intelligence, augmented reality, virtual reality. The rate of change in the world of work is significant, and we need to think about what it requires from public education to ensure that our students are prepared to be successful in that emerging future. And the competencies that are needed to be successful in that emerging future are very different than the last century. And yet, many of our classrooms look very much like they did when we were in school. And so we have an opportunity to really create a compelling vision for where Scottsdale Unified will be. My belief is we should be benchmarking against the best, not only in the state, but across the country and around the world, and that we should actually be able to compete with any educational entity around the country and around the world, because our kids need to be able to compete. So from my perspective, thinking about the future, building for that future, we don't have to put back the system the way that it was. We can actually build back better, to borrow a phrase from other politicians, and put something in place that ensures that every student in our school system really is prepared to be successful in the emerging future.
Thank you very much. Mayor, talk a little bit about what your priorities are for 2021, in addition to what you've already mentioned.
Well, terrific. This forum is all about collaboration and all sectors that are involved as we move Scottsdale forward. Education, public safety, short-term rentals is a huge issue because it has interrupted our neighborhood life, our quality of life. And Scottsdale is the #1 destination for short-term rentals, I'm told, in the whole country. There's over 4,600 of them in Scottsdale alone. So that causes a lot of disruption. It affects certainly policing and public safety. It affects education because there's an interruption between neighbors, and kids need to cross over party houses or strangers in the next house to visit their friends or to walk to school. So we can collaborate, we must collaborate together in all these sectors to move forward. Adding to the Chief's comment, we finished our council's been in office for 8 weeks, and we're beginning the entire budget process where all of the departments are reporting, and frankly, the news is pretty strong in terms of our financial health and our financial stability. Yes, we worked harder and more nimble to get through 2020, but now we have a pretty clear idea after half a year of dealing with our budget and then projecting for the next coming year. Be assured, of course, that public safety, fire, and police are going to be well covered, and also we are directing that we will have a closer and stronger ties to our education sector. That's one thing that we've absolutely known that grew out of COVID, and also we are getting into the bond 2019. That bond includes over $319 million in needed infrastructure, and that covers all sectors, including Parks and Rec, annex buildings to the police department, transportation improvements, and so we're rolling that out. It is in progress, and we have a very healthy financial AAA rating. So the biggest kind of lesson that I'd also like to mention is we have a flight to quality, and you see that basically at our airport, right? The corporate jets and participation there because commercial transportation got crippled. So business leaders found a way to get around and actually come to Scottsdale. And that quality is what we're going to build on in the coming years.
Thank you, Mayor. So this will be our last question this morning. It's a chamber event, and so it makes sense for us to ask and give you guys the opportunity to tell the business community joining us this morning how we can help support your priorities. And Dr. Menzel, we're going to start with you.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here and for the support of our community. Scottsdale is amazingly supportive of our school system, passing the maintenance and operating override vote, supporting our capital efforts, and we're truly appreciative. Thinking about the future, the business community can help in a number of ways. One, creating opportunities for our young people to experience the world of work. through mentorships and internships and exposure to career opportunities. We want our students to be able to stay in Scottsdale after they move through the system. They may go away to college, but this is a place that we want to be able to grow our own talent. So partnering with the business community to create those learning opportunities, when students understand how what they're learning applies to a future world of work, it engages them with the curriculum in a very different way. They understand why it's important to understand that and learn that information. So the business community can be really critical as a partner in helping expand the horizons for our young people. And we think that there are many other opportunities, but for me that's the most important, is to create those learning opportunities so that our young people can see what's available for them in the future.
Thank you. Mayor?
Well, our business environment is strong, and right now we have the shakeup of the pandemic that's caused a lot of vacancies. It's caused some, tragic ends to some businesses, and yet at the same time, many were, let's just say, opted to retire through the pandemic, had put in 20 or 30 years in a business when normally some business cycles are much shorter than that. And all of those businesses, past, present, and future, need to build on the same assets and qualities that brought us here, that got us to where we are now. And I think the business world and the chamber in Scottsdale should take a lot of credit, and I give them a lot of credit for working through with other members of the chamber, growing new members that are coming and looking for the Scottsdale environment. And I have been speaking to so many new prospects that did their due diligence, that understand what Scottsdale's about, where we are, and our identity. And one of the first questions they ask is, how are your schools? Mm-hmm. They are sold on that. That is a big driver. What is the business environment? Businesses will look to Scottsdale first, especially small businesses. And I think that great service by the chamber, hands-on training, and share what we know is really what's valuable, because what we know is individually is greater as a whole than each individual part. And I love this job. I love being able to represent and say, welcome to Scottsdale. I know that's what the chamber does. I know that's what educators do. And I know that the public safety and police walk up to people, and people should walk up and exchange ideas in a partnership.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief?
I'd mentioned in an earlier question about leveraging relationships. And we must continue to leverage relationship, not just with our residents, but with our business community. And so we, I think, do a really good job with that. But if you look at typical law enforcement and the business community, we all tend to be reactive. That you'll call the police department when there's an issue or a problem. You've had a break-in. You have a wayward employee that needs to be escorted off the property. And my goal really for us is to be more proactive in our relationships. And so you see each of the districts have crime prevention officers who go out and meet with business owners and talk about security surveys and how we can be better partners. And so it all comes back to the same thing, which is call us. Let's not be reactive. Let's be proactive. There are times that we're going to reach out to you, but more often there are going to be opportunities for you to reach out to us. Have the crime prevention folks come in. Have your district commanders for where your business is located. Meet with them. Have coffee. Get on my calendar. I'll meet anybody for coffee and a conversation to talk about how we can work more collaboratively together to make Scottsdale an even safer place. Scottsdale is an amazing, amazing place with just great resources, but everything is really predicated on that relationship. So let's leverage those relationships to be better.
Thank you very much. And I just, on behalf of the chamber and the community, I think we've talked a lot about a year of change that 2020 brought and the year of opportunity that 2021 brings. And I'd just like to thank you for being here and underscore how important it is and how thankful we are to have each of your leadership, brand new, seizing the opportunities that are presented to us as a community and as a business community. And so thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership and for sharing your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much, Melinda. Very appreciative of your time and your talents. Thank you so much for volunteering. And with the panel, thank you all very, very much. Let's give a big virtual thank you and support for our panelists, and of course, our keynote presenter, Josh Isner from AXON, did a remarkable job. Also like to thank our sponsors one more time for their continued support of Scottsdale Forward. Without you, events like this wouldn't be possible. I encourage those viewing to take a look at scottsdalechamber.com for upcoming events. We are still remaining in the virtual mode, as I described. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the Scottsdale Forward Committee, volunteers that worked so hard to bring this event together. And in particular, I'd like to really thank Jonah Davis from DC Ranch, who did so much to help lead the team and bring us together today. Renee Higgs from Heartland Financial, who I mentioned earlier, who is here today and has volunteered so much time and effort. And Jane Blacker from Russ Lyon Sotheby's for being leader and helping us today and leading the committee and all of the volunteers, as well as the staff of the Scottsdale Area Chamber. They are remarkable individuals, have been working hard to bring this program and others together. And in particular, I'd like to thank Cherie Valentino, our vice president and the executive producer of today's event. She did a remarkable job under very tough circumstances, if you will, to bring us all together, and greatly appreciative of her effort and her leadership. You know, today was a really remarkable program. We heard from diverse backgrounds and perspectives on different aspects of Scottsdale. We heard from President Harvier talking about the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community and their efforts in leadership and economic development. Rob Millar and the hard work that his team is doing on behalf of the city and economic development. Todd LaPorte from Honor Health and how important the work and the breakthroughs that they're seeing and the efforts of their many, many employees and frontline workers. I mentioned Josh and AXON, thank you again, and of course our panelists. We've got we learned about public safety and the commitment in the community. We learned about public education and what's happening even in the next week on behalf of SUSD, and we're grateful for that insight as well. And of course from our mayor and the leadership that he and the council are showing with the anti-discrimination ordinance, and of course he mentioned the general plan. So please take time to participate in the general plan process. That's very important to the city of Scottsdale and the future of Scottsdale. And as I wrap up, when we promoted this event, we were talking about what's next, what now? Actually, we said WTF, which is what's the future? So I'm going to change that around. So WTF, welcome the future. We'll see you again. Thanks for being here.